Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. And this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. And this time, I'm going to take a look at an oldie but a goodie. Well, it's not that old, but the contents is. We want to take a look at this story from the X-Men number 48, featuring Cyclops and Marvel Girl, originally from 1968. But this is 2018 reprint volume. It was promotional stuff for some Phoenix trade paperback, and that's why it focuses on Cyclops and Marvel Girl, because of course Marvel Girl is Jean Grey, who eventually becomes Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix. And this was, of course, plotted by Stan Lee, script by Arnold Drake, with art by Don Heck and Warner Roth, with inks by John Verpoorten. Verpoorten. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. From 1968, with the cover illustration by Jazzy John Romita. Yeah, and he did a good job. I like John Romita, and the artwork in this is really nice. You can see the Don Heck style, because he probably did the. I'm gathering he probably did the loose breakdowns, and then the finished pencils by Warner Roth before they were inked by the guy whose name I can't pronounce. And this is at the 68. At this time, X-Men was not all that popular. I like this period, but I don't have much from that period. I didn't read it at the time. 68. I was just a little kid, and I got mostly saved my pennies for like Superman, Batman, maybe Spider-Man, and occasionally some Fantastic Four or something, as well as a few cartoony ones. So I didn't get to read this stuff until usually later, when the X-Men was reprinting the earlier stuff, and that's when I discovered them, and I liked them. But I've never been a real big X-Men fan, and especially not in the 80s and 90s, when everyone else was X-Men crazy. But I did like the animated series real well. I liked that, and the comic book tie-in to the animated series. I liked that because they had to actually tell a story in the context, in the issue. Otherwise, they had all that weird storytelling. They stretched it out so far. So, but here, this is good. So it's very retro. Now, for a little background, from what I understand from In Context, that at this time, Professor X was dead, or at least thought to be dead, one of the many times he has died. The X-Men have broken up. I guess they're working for some government organization, undisclosed in here, maybe S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't know. And they're broken up into two teams, Marvel Girl and Cyclops in New York, and Beast and Iceman in California. So I gather they're alternating issues with their adventures. So, but here we can see. Here on the cover says, "What waits within the hive." A 12-cent cover price. Jeez. And we start off with Jean. What's Jean? I didn't say where Angel was. Jean Jean, beware Computo, commander of the robot hive. Her cover is a fashion model, but of course she is. And here she is, seeming to be doing a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and they're taking pictures of her in all kinds of swimsuits and all. Even though there are a bunch of other girls there, and of course she's thinking, reflecting, and giving us some backstory and stuff like that. Oh yeah, Angel's a roving agent. Yeah, he goes wherever he's needed. And their accident happens. Some heavy light's about to fall on somebody. And Jean's power, she stops the fall just enough so it can be recovered without people being suspicious. And of course, then the boss comes up to her and says, "Oh, she's the new girl," and he gets lovey-dovey and friendly, just meeting her, and asks her out for dinner that night. A little bit of sexual harassment here, just in time for Scott to get there and get really teed off. Grabs the guy by the necktie, but all the other girls come to the rescue and stop him from doing something he'll regret, and grab him, and they all get all lovey-dovey on him, and then Jean gets all jealous. Jealousy's the name of the game. At this time they weren't doing as much romance comics, and they were putting the romance stuff into their superhero stuff. And then we switch scenes to somewhere else. We see this Kirby looking place. So these looks like fetal robots. The robots. 3 of them are commanded to wake up, and they're sent on some mission by Computo, their computer controller. And then we don't know what it is, where it is. Then they're back with Jean and Scott, going to Scott's job as a radio reporter at the radio station. And they look at all that they're just giving her a tour because he's done for the day, and they got their stuff already recorded and being played. And peeks out the window and sees all this new equipment that's being delivered, and suddenly comes out of a truck, those weird-looking robots we saw before. They come and they attack the guys. They're trying to steal the equipment. What's going on? And it's Cyclops and Marvel Girl to the rescue. I like this. This is, of course, when Marvel Girl was wearing that green dress, and I liked that style. I liked it better than the form-fitting bodysuit, even though she looks fine in that. But I just like that kind of like cheerleader-looking suit outfit. And they're fighting the robots. Each of these robots have different powers, and Cyclops gets knocked around, and Jean grabs the robot just as he's about to flop on Cyclops. This is a good panel here, and so he can zap him with his optic blast, and then the 2 of them are stopped, and the one robot gets away, and Jean puts a kind of like a psychic bug on him, and they follow him to where he went. It's some kind of gravel pit, and I sense something down here. Zaps an opening and goes into a tunnel, and here they are. Then this is where Computo is, and it's the failed robot is surrounded by like robot guards, and his punishment for failure is death. The robot, so he's crushed, and just in time to get the alert. They're being invaded. And it's Scott and Jean, and they're being attacked by more of the robots, and more and more robots are being born that were in storage, and they're zapping, and fighting until finally the big Computo controller robot of the robots is destroyed, and out from within comes. It must have had some human agency behind this robot, and sure enough, it is Quasimodo. I don't think you ever see Quasimodo before, but I remember seeing him a few times from back then. He is a quasi-motivational destruct organ. He is a cyborg. And so he gets away and he gets an emergency exit, and he pulls this lever, which starts flooding the entire cavern. Oh no, we're going to be trapped. We're going to be trapped. So Jean grabs Scott, and she, using her psychic powers, levitates them out to safety. And he uses optic blasts to seal off the cavern for good. And then says, the heat is really on. Next time with Beast and Iceman. Meet the Lava Man. Oh, yeah. And then it has a little backup. Written by Linda Fight. I don't know her, but this was, apparently she was a one of the production people, and they let her do write this little thing on Jean Grey. It's not a story. It's just a rehash showing her abilities and etc. And this is all drawn by Warner Roth, and I think it does a lovely, lovely job on the art in this little backup thing. And that's all fun. Now this is at the time, of course, from the 60s, and the female characters were, you get someone like Jean Grey, a Marvel girl, and the Invisible Girl from Fantastic Four, and they were given, well, they needed to have female characters, of course, and they created these ladies, but they were needed to have powers, but they just didn't, whether consciously or not, didn't seem appropriate for them to be smashing and punching people as later. So they gave them softer powers, what seemed more feminine, softer powers. Of course, like Invisible Girl, invisibility and her force field. And Jean Grey, she was telepathy and telekinesis, so softer stuff, so she didn't have to get so physically involved. And it turned out, of course, later writers realized the potential of those characters, so that those two softer ladies became two of the most powerful characters in the DC, in the Marvel universe. And of course, well, later Jean Grey as Phoenix, as Dark Phoenix, was also one of the biggest menaces. She was most powerful and the greatest menaces. So they grew very much beyond their original conception. And of course, Invisible Woman is almost as powerful because her force field generation. She can do all kinds of stuff with that, even as she described in the movie. I could put a force field bubble inside your body and expand it and make it go poof, and that's kind of gruesome, right? But that's it. And Jean could do basically the same thing. So I think that's neat. But I like this costume version of her costume, and before things changed up in the late 70s. But that's fine, and that's all I wanted to share with you this time, is Cyclops and Marvel Girl from the X-Men. This is, as I said, this is at the time that I really that I like the X-Men a little more than their later stuff. So, thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe, and do leave your comments down below. What you think of this old-fashioned X-Men stuff? Do you prefer the later X-Men when they... Whatever. Just leave your comments about anything on here. The art style, the characterization, what have you. And remember, comics are art.